What really happens when a U.S. president dies? It's a moment when an entire nation pauses. Why do some presidents lie in state while others don't? Who plans these immense events? And how early do they begin? Why is the flag never allowed to touch the ground? And what's the deeper meaning behind the 21-gun salute? Or the riderless horse? Get ready to uncover the powerful hidden messages buried within a president's final farewell. A U.S. president's funeral is a national drama that unfolds like a sacred script. Once the death is confirmed, a flurry of actions begins. The sitting president is notified immediately. Flags are ordered to half-staff for 30 days, the longest official mourning period under U.S. law. Congress is informed, and Capitol preparations begin. A classified communication alert is sent across federal agencies and global embassies. Simultaneously, broadcasters break into regular programming with the announcement.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
And condolence messages begin flooding in from around the world. Military honor guards are mobilized. The elite Old Guard, the U.S. Army's 3rd Infantry Regiment, is usually responsible. It might sound morbid, but planning for a president's funeral often starts while they're still in office. Funeral planning teams are constantly ready, yes, even for living presidents, as part of military protocol under the Joint Task Force National Capital Region. Though each state funeral has a similar structure, the president or their family customizes the details. These plans cover everything, from the readings and music to where the casket should lie, and even how the military honors should be arranged. Each president is asked to prepare a secret plan, often referred to by a code name. Ronald Reagan's was Operation Serenade. Gerald Ford's, Plan 32. George H.W. Bush's plan was titled Operation 41. If the president dies on active duty, like John F. Kennedy, the process is instant and intense. If it's a former president, things may unfold more slowly, but with just as much precision. The tradition of state funerals didn't arrive fully formed. It evolved. The first general mourning was proclaimed in the United States in 1790, upon the death of Benjamin Franklin. It is estimated that 20,000 mourners gathered for Franklin's funeral. William Henry Harrison was the first president to die in office in 1841, just 31 days into his term. And there was no established way of mourning a deceased incumbent president. The funeral was improvised, but the grief was very real. Washington draped buildings in black crepe. Tolling bells mourned across the city, and soldiers marched behind a hearse drawn by 6 white horses. By the time Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in 1865, the machinery of mourning had expanded dramatically. Lincoln's funeral train traveled nearly 1,700 miles, stopping in 180 cities, towns, and villages, giving over 7 million Americans a chance to say goodbye. In New York City, over 500,000 people lined the streets. Lincoln was the first president to lie in state in the United States Capitol Rotunda. A state funeral lasts 5 to 7 days, often across multiple cities. The funeral usually includes ceremonies in Washington, D.C., a national cathedral service, and a final hometown burial. But before Washington sees them, the body returns home, to Plains, Georgia, to Texas, to Illinois. This is where the community, the neighbors, the childhood friends say goodbye. This stage is known as lying in repose, and it's often held in a church, hometown museum, or presidential library. There's no marching band or 21-gun salute here, just soft organ music, flowers, and the quiet presence of locals. When Lyndon B. Johnson died in 1973, thousands lined up in Texas to walk past his casket, even though he had already lain in state in D.C. It showed how deeply connected people felt to their president. When Ronald Reagan died, his casket was placed at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in California, where over 100,000 mourners filed past in silence. When the casket travels to Washington, it becomes Special Air Mission 28,000, or whatever number corresponds to the aircraft used. It's a nod to Air Force One, but without the sitting president on board. It's then taken to the Capitol Rotunda, where it lies in state under the soaring dome, on the same catafalque built in 1865 to hold Abraham Lincoln's coffin. The same wooden platform, over 150 years old, cradles modern leaders. Over the next 24 to 48 hours, thousands stream past in silence. Some weep, some salute, some simply stand frozen. Most presidential funerals feature a closed casket. This is partly due to the preservation required for days of public viewing, but also out of respect. JFK's casket remained closed due to the severity of his wounds. The U.S. flag that covers the casket follows strict rules. It must cover the entire casket with the Union, blue field with stars, over the left shoulder. It must never touch the ground. After burial, it is folded into a triangle, resembling the tricorn hat worn during the American Revolution, and handed to the next of kin with the words, "On behalf of the President of the United States and a grateful nation." The folded flag contains exactly 13 folds, each with a symbolic meaning tied to life, service, and faith. At no point during the ceremony, from the Capitol to the cemetery, can the flag-draped casket rest directly on soil. It's a sign of unbroken honor. Most people think of a 21-gun salute as a show of strength. In truth, it's a ceremony of restraint and reverence. It's not about firepower, it's about honor. Each gun is fired with a precise pause in between. That silence, that anticipation, carries a weight no words can hold. The number 21 has roots in naval tradition, where ships would fire their cannons to show they came in peace. It became the international standard for saluting heads of state. At Reagan's burial, the U.S. Navy staged a rare missing man formation. Jets peeled away into the sky, symbolizing a warrior leaving this world. The funeral service itself, often held at the Washington National Cathedral or a major church, is a careful blend of faith and national ceremony. During the lying in state, a 4-person guard stands at each corner of the casket 24/7, rotating every 30 minutes. Each guard is from a different branch of the U.S. military, symbolizing the president's role as commander-in-chief of all forces. They stand motionless and silent, their presence more powerful than words. At the Washington National Cathedral, a formal state funeral takes place. This is where eulogies are delivered, hymns are sung, and world leaders gather under one roof. Dignitaries from around the world attend. The casket enters as bagpipes or military music swells. It's deeply emotional. George W. Bush broke into tears during his father's eulogy in 2018, calling him the best dad a son or daughter could ever have.
The best father a son or daughter could have.
At Kennedy's funeral, French President Charles de Gaulle, British Prime Minister Harold Macmillan, and Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie all walked behind the casket, a rare show of unity. At Ronald Reagan's funeral in 2004, all living presidents, Carter, Ford, Clinton, and both Bushes, were seated together for the first time in decades. It was called America's Last Great Gathering. The cathedral service is broadcast worldwide, a global moment of shared grief and reflection. One of the most iconic moments of any presidential funeral is the caisson procession through the streets of Washington. A military caisson carries the flag-draped casket. In this silent march, a single black horse follows behind the caisson. It has no rider, but a pair of boots reversed in the stirrups. symbolizing a fallen leader looking back on his troops one last time. For John F. Kennedy's funeral, the horse named Blackjack stole the nation's heart, stamping his hooves as if he understood the gravity of the day. This tradition dates back to the funeral of Abraham Lincoln. After the D.C. ceremonies, the president is transported, often by Air Force One, renamed Special Air Mission, to their chosen resting place. It could be Arlington. It could be a hometown plot. It could be the presidential library. Ronald Reagan was buried at sunset on a California hilltop. George H.W. Bush was laid to rest alongside his wife Barbara and daughter Robin. Perhaps the most famous presidential burial is John F. Kennedy's at Arlington National Cemetery. Jacqueline Kennedy requested an eternal flame, inspired by the tomb of the unknown soldier in Paris. That flame has burned since 1963, through blizzards, storms, and blackouts, tended regularly by staff. Such moments of honor and remembrance don't happen by accident. They require planning, precision, and yes, funding. Presidential funerals are publicly funded events, often costing $400,000 to $500,000. Security, logistics, and ceremonial costs can vary widely. Some critics argue the money could be better spent, but others say the cost is symbolic, a final public investment in gratitude, civility, and memory. But beyond the cost and ceremony lies something more personal, the heart of the farewell itself. Not every funeral is stiff and somber. George H.W. Bush's eulogy included jokes, as he requested. The choir sang his favorite hymns. At Reagan's funeral, America the Beautiful brought tears to even the most stoic generals. Nixon chose to forego a state funeral, requesting a simple burial at his library. Kennedy's funeral was modeled after Lincoln's, at Jackie's request. This state funeral was the first in the television age, covered live from start to finish, non-stop for 70 hours. One unforgettable image: John F. Kennedy's 3-year-old son, John Jr., standing stiffly and saluting his father's casket in 1963, a moment frozen in time. George H.W. Bush's funeral train in 2018 marked the first presidential funeral train in 49 years. Union Pacific 4141 drew tens of thousands along its Texas route. The train bore the number 4141, honoring his place in the presidency. Not all presidents receive a state funeral, but all are entitled to one. Only those who pass away while in office or are former presidents generally receive this honor, though Congress may authorize it for other figures, like General Douglas MacArthur or Senator Henry Clay. The family may decline the full ceremonial scale. Lyndon B. Johnson's was simplified at the family's request. But most accept the elaborate tradition, knowing its meaning extends far beyond personal grief. So, what does it really mean to bury a president? State funerals are more than national events. They're quiet reminders that even the most powerful among us return to the earth, honored not by gold or power, but by people gathering to say thank you. From Abraham Lincoln's epic funeral train to the quiet tear on George W. Bush's cheek as he said goodbye to his father, these rituals reveal the soul of a nation. Make sure to explore our other videos where we uncover the stories most people never hear. What will you discover next?